Welcome to the third episode of Mol België Season 14 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Armstrong, and joining me as always is a Canadian who really needs to stop sending us pictures of his quarter-sized guitar when he gets a little bit tipsy, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who is disappointed that a Portuguese man called Pedro couldn't ram him last season, David Bindley.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is a wonderful day again, because as Logan has literally just realised as we started recording, he has lost 4 of his 5 team members.
Well, maybe next year you guys will let me have 6 team members and I'll have a chance.
Well, this isn't even the first year that you've had 5 team members, because before Bindles joined, we both had 5 each some years. And somehow you are on the precipice of setting history of losing every single team member in Belgium back to back to back to back to back.
I'm not saying you've done badly, but if you do lose Yana next week, you do have to apologise to Gilles in person when you get to Belgium.
Yeah, well, hula hoop.
Yeah, in Dutch.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Also, just so you're aware, Saunders, it is a 1 in 360 chance of you doing what you've done up to this week. If you manage it next week, it's 1 in 2,520, because I did the maths earlier.
Well, I hope we're podcasting for a long time, because eventually it'll happen to you too. I just did it much earlier than anticipated.
A wipeout in week 4 has only happened once before, and that was you in Czechia. Czechia was your 3, then my 3, and Michelle had the final 3.
If I recall correctly, my punishment there was that I had to donate to Rocky's charity.
Yeah, you were half of the pot for that season. Anyway, have you had good weeks?
Yes and no.
I know you saw the Mario movie, Saunders, so thoughts, question mark?
Yeah, I enjoy it. Went with my nephew and nieces. They had a good time. So, yeah, it's funny. I made them take pictures when we went to the first movie 3 years ago. So it's fun to see how much they've grown in a span of 3 years.
Did you enjoy it as much as the first one?
I think the first one will always win out just because of the novelty of it at the time.
Yeah, and the fact that it had no right being as good as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was having that conversation again with a different friend who saw it separately at the weekend, and he basically agreed with me that it was a bit too fan servicey and dick sucky compared to the first one. The first one was a good movie on its own, with also the video game elements. This one was slightly too fan servicey, I think.
Nintendo being fan servicey?
Well, the first one wasn't that fan servicey. It was sort of sneakily fan servicey, but not to the same extent as the Galaxy movie is. Also, something else that kind of links into something I've had on my my things to talk about list, Saunders, that I spotted on your social media. Malcolm in the Middle. You said it was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
And the reason that it kind of leans into something that I want to talk about is, much in the same vein, the Scrubs reboot has been surprisingly very good. The last episode's on tomorrow, I think, as we record this.
Well, which show?
Scrubs.
Oh, Scrubs, yeah.
Yeah, they've done season 10 of Scrubs, and it is, in some cases, as good as the original seasons were.
Oh, wow. That also would have been, what, a 20-year gap between the finale and now, right? Or close to it?
It's about 25 years between season 1 and season 10. So it would be maybe 17, 18 years, approximately.
Yeah, because Malcolm in the Middle was 20 years even. And they filmed it in Vancouver, too. I didn't know that either until I looked it up.
Scrubs is filmed in Vancouver as well.
Yeah, it's really becoming Hollywood North.
Yeah, they've completely rebuilt Sacred Heart in Vancouver because the old one got knocked down, I think. But yeah, it's surprisingly really good. I'm enjoying it.
Did they also do fewer episodes overall, and were they able to get the whole cast back for that too?
It's 9 episodes, yes, but I mean, it is also broadcasting on ABC in the US, and as far as I'm aware, the ratings have been quite good, so I suspect it's going to be a longer season 11. But yeah, pretty much all the regular cast have been back. There are a couple of original regular cast members who haven't come back yet, but they are due back in this week's episode.
Yeah, because with Malcolm in the Middle, they were able to get everybody back for it except for the guy who played Dewey. But
He's retired.
yeah, I think that was the only acting gig he ever did was for Malcolm in the Middle. Now he's going to Harvard or a Harvard professor. I can't remember the exact story there, but I think he hasn't acted at all in 20 years since Malcolm in the Middle ended. And they just replaced him with a guy who looks just like Dewey anyway, so didn't really matter too much.
Also, talking of things that film in the Vancouver area, $1 Million Secret is back tomorrow.
Oh yeah, because are they filming that in Vancouver this time? Because they were in
That's Chateau Kelowna.
Kelowna again for season 2.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's the same hotel,
Huh.
which, as we're well aware, is Chateau Kelowna.
Yeah, I still have to watch. I still have to watch season 1.
Oh, it's really good. I enjoyed it. Hosted by Peter Serafinowicz, but also created by British Grant bowler Glenn Hugel, who I've met. Anything else? There's something that came up on Reddit that I did mean to mention about Japan a couple of weeks, which is how was the etiquette when you were in Japan in theme parks, Saunders?
I'm trying to think with Universal.
Yeah, because you went to Universal, didn't you? I went to Universal and Disney.
I can't remember anything super specific because I was with my friend who lived in Japan for 9 years.
Yeah, so Universal was absolutely heaving when we were there. It was meant to be a low crowd day, and it really wasn't, especially in Super Nintendo World, because we did maybe 1 or 2 rides in Universal. We only ended up doing a half day just because it was too busy and too queuey, and then went to Nara afterwards.
Yeah, we had 1 hour wait times for a couple of rides, and we had a time. It was right when Super Nintendo World opened. It'd only been open for a couple weeks, and we had to do like a sign-in time that we didn't know about till right when we got there. So we were only allowed in Super Nintendo World at 8 o'clock in the evening. So it was only from like 8 to 9 p.m. So we couldn't do any of the rides there in Super Nintendo World.
Yeah, the Mario Kart ride was, I want to say, 150 minutes when we were there.
Yeah. Oh, that's when it showed up on the times. Yeah, on that time. Yeah, wait time app.
I think by the time we'd left the park, it was 3 hours. Was the queue time for that?
Yeah.
God, why would you bother?
Well, exactly. That's sort of my argument, and that seems to be a major cultural difference between the West and Japan in terms of theme parks. Is that Japanese punters at theme parks go, "Yeah, I'll get in the queue for that," and Western tourists go, "Nah, fuck that. I won't queue for more than an hour." But when we got back to Tokyo, we had 1 day in the main Tokyo Disneyland Park before my brother's conference, and then the first day of his conference, I went and did the second park at Disney, Tokyo Disney Sea. And there's one ride there which is recommended by everyone who's been there, called Journey to the Center of the Earth. It was really queuey. Again, it's quite a badly designed park in that there's 7 major rides, and all of them by lunchtime, I want to say, had 200 plus minute waits. So I'm like, well, I've paid the 40 odd pounds or whatever it is to get in, which is about half the price of the American parks. Still, I'm frugal. I want to get my money. So I held my nose and got into the Journey to the Center of the Earth queue when it was about 150 minutes. And there was a group of 3 Japanese teenagers in front of me. And I want to say about 20 minutes into the queue, their boyfriends turned up. So I'm already like, here we go, pushing in the queue, great. And then we got all the way through, and it took forever. It took at least 2 hours. But, I hadn't done any rides basically by that point. So I'm like, I've got to get my money's worth. And we got 5 minutes before the end, and their friends turned up and pushed all the way to the front of the queue.
Oh.
And despite my reputation on this podcast, I am quite calm, not that sweary in real life.
Really?
Yeah, surprisingly, I'm fairly calm. I'm stressy, but I'm fairly calm in this sort of a situation. So usually it'd be an eye roll, but by that point, I was hot and bothered and tired and really regretting all of my life choices. And for once in public, I may have let out a very Australian swear word at them. I believe my exact phrase was, "You've got to be fucking kidding me," and then turned to them and did an Australian swear word. I was not best pleased with them.
How do they react?
They just sort of smiled and turned back. But yes, I was very angry at them. Because you don't usually expect that in Disney. If that happened in the American parks, the cast member would have spotted it and they would have got booted out at the front of the queue. More than likely.
Especially for a 3-hour wait time.
Yeah.
I think that's just for everyone's safety. This would be flying at any of the American theme parks if that happened.
Oh, if I didn't have... I mean, I'd come prepared with my Kindle in my bag anyway, so I ended up reading a pre-release copy of a quite gruesome murder mystery book. But, yeah, I was tampering, raging, fuming at that, to be honest. But this came up on the Walt Disney World subreddit yesterday, because someone was saying, "Oh, you don't get that in the Japanese parks." And I'm like, you do. You really get people pushing in and being obnoxious. But Tokyo Disney Sea, very pretty, very nice parts to take pictures of. I just don't think it's very well designed.
I've read or I saw a video because I always consider going there whenever I'm in Tokyo, and every video is just, it doesn't matter what day you go, it's always insanely busy, insanely crowded, insanely packed. So that's why I've never gone there on any of my visits to Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, both Universal and Disney were very, very cheap comparatively. Because previously, the cheapest Universal park had been to Singapore, which was about £48 for the day, and I think it was maybe even slightly below £40 for Osaka.
That's pretty good.
And they still got Jaws. They got the Jaws ride. It's fun. We did it first thing, and we were damp for the rest of the day. So anyway, België.
Yeah, speaking of people regretting their entire life choices, Logan lost his entire team last week.
And you didn't even spoil that Logan lost another team member this week for me. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I was maybe chanting during the execution scene, red, 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 when Abigail's name was typed in just for the lols. But, yeah. Previously, the remaining 9 were shocked by the return of Abigail and Vincent, who competed to win their trust in the form of 2 Passfragen, and then their spot back in the game. Vincent did worst on the test, leaving Abigail to rejoin the group for good. Beach day to remember, Carla and Dries were buried, while the other 8 sailed to their rescue, which Wout and Maxim did just in time. After a very important breakfast, the group was split into 2, and those who chose Patel and Natta got to watch on as both Carla and Christoph were sent home. And we open to a Fado singer and the translation of what she's singing, which is about what's happened so far. And she ends asking the question that we always do, wie ist Mol?
Man, if only they had a show that asked that exact question.
Very true. I'll also say this now. She was very, very good with her Dutch pronunciation. Far better than any of us. I'm assuming she had it phonetically on her tablet, but also presumably she only had one chance at it.
Yeah.
I was very impressed, especially as I've seen the behind the scenes, and well, she said she didn't really understand what she was saying. Isabel had to translate the thing about Dries's large guitar. Behind the scenes this week, very very fun as well. Café de Mol's Café de Mol. I would advocate you watching the behind the scenes when you get the opportunity because it is very fun.
Yeah, how long are the behind the scenes episodes?
It was almost dead 9 minutes this week.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Café de Mol's about 40 minutes, and you get a couple of interesting bits, but behind the scenes is more entertaining, I think.
Okay.
So it's day 6 in Sao Tome, and they spot a note by the pool. They've got 2 weeks to practice hula hooping, and Gilles promises that it will pay off in the finale.
I have a question. Do you think that was made up because of Carla's hula hooping, or that was already planned before the season even started?
That was absolutely made up.
Really? I think it was already planned.
No, well, the note that I got with it was handwritten compared to every other note being like the printout with that was clearly a last minute thing.
It was, but I think maybe the wording was changed because in the behind the scenes, Gilles actually did handwrite that note, and he was seemingly copying it from a WhatsApp message. Oh, yeah. So I think maybe they changed the wording at the last second, but I do think that it was probably a planned twist, because presumably it's going to be basically the hula hoop being named Isidore and trying to win them €10,000 at the end or something.
It's great when you two disagree on something.
Doesn't happen very often at the moment, Saunders. But yeah, in the behind the scenes, Gilles was debating with Jan, the editor, whether to put dear or best friends at the top. And he says sometimes they're dear and sometimes they're best.
We're always best.
Yeah, obviously. He's the best friend of the podcast, what can I say? So when they get to the cars, they see they have to split into 4 farmers and 4 people who can move others. The 4 farmers are Wout, Abigail, Julian, Maxim, while the 4 others are Isabel, Dries, Yannis, and Yana. And this is the bonus question for the suspect list this week, is which side the mole fell on. I was nice on this one. I was less nice on the Vidum one.
I'm surprised Isabel was in the Who Can Move People group because she nearly moved herself into the swimming pool while trying to hula hoop. It was like she was having a seizure when hula hooping.
Yeah, the previous 4 words on my notes are just Isabel is absolutely insane with regards to the hula hoop.
My only note on that is, unsurprisingly, Belgians are good at thrusting.
In the same way that I gift Yuri face planting into the pool in Vietnam, I kind of want to give Isabel's just insane hula hooping.
I think she crashed into 2 chairs, a table, a couple of boom mic operators.
Also, something that you didn't see in the episode but is in the behind the scenes, they nearly had to take a trip to hospital because they stopped at some sort of tourist attraction on the way to this challenge, and they were singing enthusiastically in the car, and the zipline group were singing enthusiastically to Celine Dion's It's All Coming Back to Me Now, and at the high note, Yannis accidentally punched Dries in the nose. And his nose was indeed bleeding on the side of the road. He sort of stretched out his arms and accidentally punched Dries in the face.
I have a question. Why did they all instantly think this was something to do with music or the arts? Because that, the hint about who can move people, that doesn't really read as a obvious performance-y sort of hint to me.
Yeah. Is Fado associated with the north of Portugal, specifically?
I don't know.
Because if it is, then that might be what they're thinking. They're thinking, logically, that Belgium loves to play on the sort of stereotypes of the region they're in. They're not going to stay in the north of Portugal forever. So presumably they're going to do something with Fado at some point. And then when you see, who can move people, you go, maybe they're just trying to trick us here. Maybe it's something musical.
Maybe.
Because also, as Logan pointed out when he was watching this episode, quite a musical episode, this one. There's a whole lot of music in this episode.
But done better than when Amazing Race Canada squeezes in 20 million dance challenges in a season.
Yeah. These are interesting challenges. And I know people on Discord have been complaining that maybe this was a quieter episode and maybe it's a bad start to the season. I don't think it's a bad start to the season by any stretch of the imagination. It's a quieter episode. But also, you can't keep the intensity of episode 2 up. You need a kind of, not a lull, but a more
fun,
chill episode. Yeah, you need these people to enjoy each other's company when they're doing this sort of a trip. And after the intensity of last week, I don't think it would have been a good idea for them to have kept up that insane intensity.
Yeah, and I quite like that this is basically the first episode in 3 seasons without the spectre of a big twist sort of looming over it.
Yeah.
Because, we had, last season, the mole case turned up every week. The season before, we had the doublers. So it's not, we haven't really had a normal mole episode since Arizona. And, it's quite nice to just have a normal mole episode sometimes.
So the 4 who can move others are treated to a performance by the Fado singer we saw at the start, Liliana. They have to fill in the gaps in her song, and those gaps can only be filled on the other side of the valley. Luckily for them, though, the way across the valley is a face-first zip line at 130 kilometers an hour.
Okay, I know we just talked about Dries getting punched in the nose, but it almost happens again in the car on the way here, because Wout is trying to air guitar in the front passenger seat with his glasses on his forehead, and I think he almost whacks whoever was driving as well.
Yeah, it was very animated.
At the tourist location, they were both singing songs in their respective cars. It was It's All Coming Back to Me Now for the Zipline group, and the Farmers was Pump It Up. I can't remember who was in... Wout was driving, so I can't remember who was in the passenger seat for that. They were all... I think the phrasing that Jan used was something like, when we're travelling on the mole, we always try and keep a low profile, but it's not always possible. And then you just cut to this anonymous tourist location and them all singing / screaming out of the car windows. And then Dries getting punched in the face.
If this was Canary Islands, it would have been a broken nose and he would have been medically removed from the game.
Well, conveniently, Nella was in the audience for Café de Mol this week. She was quite visibly behind the sofa. How would you have done with the face-first zipline?
I would have been screaming the whole time?
Yeah, I would not have done well.
I know we like to talk about this sort of thing, and I know it's an obvious square for Fuzzy, but that looked really fun, is what I have to say.
Yeah,
I would be terrified, but it looked really
fun. Mm-hmm. But I would not have been confident I would have made it down to the bottom in one piece.
Yeah, despite the fact that we've talked a lot about my high wire adventures in the past, I'm not too bad with zip lines. It's when I don't feel safe, when I'm sort of swinging in midair, that I'm not great.
It looked safer than the zip line I did in the Philippines. That's for sure.
So during the zip line, they must find out as much as possible about each other on a particular topic, beginning with Dries and his love life. To find out exactly who and what, the farmers must communicate it by corralling sheep into a rectangle and taking a photo with a drone that's flying above it, which is then shown to the zipliners on a screen below them. For each of the 2 gaps that Isabel fills in about Dries' love life, they will earn €750 for the pot, and they've got 5 minutes until the song is sung. Why do you think we got another challenge where it's asking information about each other again? It's just very odd that a third of the way through the season they're still doing this sort of a challenge when it's usually very early on stuff.
Yeah, like the challenge is fine. I think it probably would have worked better if the opening challenge had something different to it. I think you could have got away with like the Stockade group doing their challenge, but I think if you're doing this challenge, I think the group that was strapped to the crosses really needed to be doing something else, because it kind of just feels like you're retreading the same ground a little bit.
Do we think this was because Belgium doesn't normally do overlap like this with having the very similar getting to know you type challenge multiple times in a season? Do we think this may have been a last minute format change to the challenge?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think they probably would have had to do something on the zip line anyway, and I get why, talk about yourself makes sense as what you do for that. But I think when this challenge is similar to, the opening episode, but it's also like structurally very similar to the Demolition Derby challenge later in this episode, where you've got basically 2 challenges that we're watching the same thing happen 3 times. I kind of don't know why this happened. It's a fine challenge on its own. I don't think it works in the context of everything else we've seen this season.
No, and I think taking the Fado bit out of it, it could be done anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, Fado is the only hook, I would say, to Portugal in this challenge, which is quite atypical for this show.
Yeah. Take the Fado out, you could have done this in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And, like, New Zealand and Portugal are not very similar.
Or indeed Wales. Wales has a big fuck-off zipline like that.
Yeah.
Because it's been used as a reward on The Apprentice before.
Oh. God, can you imagine winning a challenge on a reality TV show and your reward is, we get to go to Wales, the most suspicious place on Earth?
Or was it a reward? No, I think it was just part of the away day challenge, is that they had to test it out because it was in the intro. They went to Zip World anyway. I know there's definitely one in Wales. So they corral the sheep with the red dot for Dries, but not the topic one. And they have to decide for themselves when the zip line should be released. And the zip line takes at least a minute. Although, in the case of Yannis and Yana, maybe it's slightly less than a minute, because as Yana says, Yannis is a bit fat.
He just likes his Burger King.
Well, he'll be happy with the finale location. Kinepolis is connected to a Burger King.
It is. It's got all his essentials. A Decathlon on one side and a Burger King on the other. A very useful Burger King, I must point out.
Imagine if you do your ritual of going into Burger King before the finale and you just see Yannis hanging out in there by himself.
I'd have had weirder interactions in that Burger King, Saunders. So the second photo they receive shows Love, and Dries starts his speech, but they still don't release, and they're going to be late for the first gap. They missed the first gap, and it was something that Dries actually told Isabel about. The second one is that he used to pick up women on Tinder with his big guitar.
I mean, it was knowing that he was picking up women. It was either going to be guitar or fish.
There is a bit more context to this on the behind-the-scenes stuff. Isabel thought that it had to rhyme.
That makes sense.
So the word dick in Dutch actually rhymed with the previous stanza's last word. But it's still hilarious because that's obviously what they were trying to bait them into doing. Imagine actually having to have a confessional like Dries did later in this episode, just going, just to be clear, to my girlfriend of 8 months at this point, I do not send dick pics on Tinder.
Anymore.
Yannis and Yana are the second zipliners, and Wout and Maxim borrow the shepherd's staff and jacket, and this round's all about Yana's love life. And they press the button, and it's basically the entire flock in the box at the first time. After a second photo and 3.5 minutes, they finally found out what the topic is. They're also late leaving, but Yannis gets the second one correct, and despite the fact we've been promised that he's a good singer, he's a little bit flat when he sings that gap.
I guess you hold back after you've nearly broken someone's nose just an hour prior.
I can't believe Yana's favourite film is White Chicks.
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes too. I'm thinking, all I can think back to is the deserted island scene from The Office, where they have to pick what 5 movies they would take with them to a deserted island. And I'm thinking, I don't think White Chicks would make the list for that many people.
No.
They were already getting ridiculed for a couple of the characters picking Legally Blonde.
And we also find out that the first thing that she cooked her now husband on a date was scampi diabolique.
Yeah, going back to what we said earlier, I'm surprised that not only was it a getting to know you challenge again, but I was a bit surprised that we rehashed the whole Starbucks story once more, because that was already talked about in very great detail when it came up the first time. I'm surprised it wasn't really skipped over as much, or that we didn't go for something completely different for Yana. That was just a beat-by-beat replay of what she already said earlier at the start of the season.
2 different things to mention. One, if you Google Scampi Diabolique, the headline that comes up is Scampi Diabolique surprisingly Belgian. And number 2 is that in the behind the scenes, we actually hear a couple more of the Fado verses for the people who weren't selected. And on that note, Abigail's one, her answer would have been The Bold and the Beautiful.
Oh, because of her obsession with that show.
Yes, because that's the one thing that we knew about Abigail in episode 1, and indeed episodes 2 and 3.
So none of the shepherds is covering themselves in any kind of glory, although one is apparently getting covered in shit.
And every other bodily fluid by the sound of things. So the final round is Isabel and Yannis, as they haven't been sung about yet, with Yannis singing again. Abigail presses the button when the red sheep's in the box, which is the wrong person, and they get a second photo pointing at blue this time, and actually release early enough just to get both of the answers potentially. Unfortunately for them, when they release into a rainstorm.
We skipped over something, a possible hidden clue. Dries said he met a woman named Aline while in South Africa.
He did, on a trip to Lesotho. Presumably it's not the Aline, because I think the Aline's husband would have something to say about that.
It could have been the exact same time.
Well, given it was meant to be January and not 2016 when they filmed the South Africa season, when Dries would have been 16.
Oh, maybe he was the kid that was hitting on Aline during the season. Come over to my house for dinner.
Isabel did really badly at explaining her travel history.
She just rattled off all of the countries she went to.
Yeah, and I'm like, they're not going to ask you what country you went to 5 holidays ago. It might be nice that it was Tanzania and Zanzibar or whatever, but they're not going to ask that. They're also not going to ask how the hell you drove to Iceland.
Well, on that note, we actually know the answer because we looked it up during the Iceland and Spain season. We looked up the fact there's a big-ass ferry from the east of Iceland all the way to Denmark, I think it was.
Oh.
And she went in reverse chronological order, too, for listing where she went. That made it even worse.
Again, it goes back to something I said on episode 1. they're not going to ask you about anything you haven't mentioned in your casting interviews. And I know that's metagaming this a little bit, but anything you've mentioned in the casting interviews is the only thing they're going to discuss, because they're not going to go to your friends and family and go, "Oh, tell me some stories that Logan hasn't told me yet. Tell me about his adventures at the stables."
It would be like, when you in Zanzibar, she dressed up as Freddie Mercury next to the Freddie Mercury house. Like it would be like, which celebrity did she dress up as in Zanzibar? It would be a question like that, not like what was her itinerary when she went to Iceland, starting from when the plane landed.
She went shopping in a field. She went to the penis museum.
She got
shown around by this weird lady.
She's some sort of dominatrix. We had fun that season.
Do you think it was like maybe a clue that they mentioned her being the devil in one of her questions?
I don't know if they'd be that blatant, because the thing about the clues is it has to be guaranteed that clue will appear, I would say, if they're going to plan a clue. And it wasn't guaranteed that she'd do the zipline necessarily. She could have pushed for it, obviously, but I don't think they'd take that gamble necessarily.
We learned Yana calls her husband Tarzan.
I guess Yana would translate as Jane.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Maybe there'll be a Tarzan swing on this season, and that's a hidden clue.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe, unfortunately for you, Saunders, she's not the mole.
She's the next one out. It's a clue that she's eliminated next.
Yeah. Not that I want to root against any particular contestants, but for the lols, Yana going next week could be very funny.
Yeah.
Well, Tarzan was 6th place in Survivor One World. If Yana goes next, she'd be 6th place for this season.
7th, wouldn't she?
But isn't there 7 left now?
Yeah, if she goes next, she'd be 7th, though. Because that's how it works.
That's how numbers work, Logan.
But there's the mole, though.
Yeah, but the mole still, in all the wiki tables, takes a placement. The second place doesn't exist on this show, basically.
Well, excuse me.
Either way, Saunders, you fucked up the maths and you're trying to sort of weasel your way out of it. It's not going to work. She'd be 7th. So Yannis gets another one right, but he thinks Isabel got red eyes from weed rather than deep sea diving in Kenya.
I think Yannis just wanted to sing the word weed at the top of his lungs.
I think he did as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were basically told, just sing something if you can't think of what the answer actually is. But also, we get 2 brilliant answers, which is dick and weed, out of this challenge.
That also felt like he was trying to think of something that kind of rhymed. Because, like, reading the rest of the paragraph, I don't think you get from that to deep sea diving logically. Like, I think that's the sort of thing that has to be mentioned for you to even guess it.
We did miss out on Wout's answer, which would have been dead animals as well.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to tell you what the context was of that, but Wout's answer, if he was on the zip line, would have ended up as dead animals.
Is that what lives around the corner from his charity? There's just a pile of dead animals next to the charity home?
It's all he could afford, unfortunately. He needs to win this season to be able to afford any live animals.
Yeah, and if they're not good enough to eat, they get sent to Burger King for Yannis's consumption.
Don't try and ruin Burger King for me. I don't want to have to walk to McDonald's. It's like half a mile away. Half a mile. It's barbaric.
Yeah, but if you go to McDonald's, there's more dead horse for Logan.
Yeah, good point.
It would have been funny after Yannis answered weed if Isabel's like, no, that's ridiculous. The answer was cocaine.
Yeah. It was 1930s cocaine.
You don't want any part of this, do we?
So Yannis's 2 correct answers give them a total of €1,500 of 4,500 for the challenge. Moving on. The next morning, Yannis makes eggs while Dries and Maxim go to the bakery, and after breakfast they head another 45 minutes south into the Portuguese hills, unfortunately for Dries, as he gets incredibly motion sick. I love how Dries is basically just the butt of all the jokes of this group now.
I did also like Wout being allergic to bad music.
Yeah,
I wonder if he's allergic to bad movies too, like White Chicks.
you might be able to ask him in 4 weeks, Saunders. So Jill meets him at a racetrack and says there is €6,000 available in this challenge, and all they have to do is not get hit by Pedro in the stunt car. They will be paired up and must have one driver and one co-pilot who will control the music, and the last pair will be worth the most, so that is a very important decision, and they pick Wout and Yana. And the other pairs are Julie and Dries, Abigail and Maxim, and Yannis and Isabel. Maxim and Abigail are the first to drive, and along the way they will hear parts of a song leading into the vocals, and to earn €1,000, they have to guess it before they are hit.
I like Yannis's pitch to be the last pair, and it's the weakest pitch I think I've ever heard for somebody to want to be put in the ideal selfish position, where he just says, "I'm good at karting." It's not a joke. Does anyone believe me that I'm not wanting to be the last pair just so I can try and get a Pastragen or a Weissjelling? No, we're all just going to ignore me. All right.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious there was something going on with that last pair.
Yeah, especially when they were being very coy about how much each round was worth. We found out the first round was worth €1,000, but we didn't know actually whether they'd earned it or whether every round was going to be worth €1,000, or, as I actually suspected at one point, first round was worth 1,000, second round was worth 2,000, the third round was worth 3,000, and then Wout and Yana would have to actually earn it. I suspected it might have been stakes rather than just, giving them €1,000. To earn the instruments, another pair, in this case Julie and Dries, must play Operation and get car parts out of an engine. I knew as soon as we saw the first glimpse of that car, I'd sort of figured out that it was going to be Operation. And it was a delight.
Yes. This fucking show.
I did see some complaints on Discord that people were going, "Oh, this show's just too silly and putting people in silly situations." And I'm like, have you seen this show before? This is the same show that has done all of that bonkers shit in previous years. Yeah. Why is now the time you're complaining?
If you want a boring show, go watch Vidum.
Not this week, though.
No,
this week I'll give him the credit. This week was probably the best Vidum episode for a long while. Not that that's a high bar. But, yeah. If you want a sensible version of the world, go watch Vidum. They don't do bonkers shit normally.
If you want a boring version of the show, go watch Netmol.
Actually, don't. We cannot endorse people watching Netmol on this podcast, even as a joke.
We're under a legal obligation not to.
Yeah.
You'll hurt your nose watching it, just like Dries.
Or just like the guy in Operation.
Yeah, each time you click on Netmol on Netflix, you just get an electric shock.
I mean, that would be preferable, I think.
Do not do that.
Hooking yourself up to a car battery or watching Netmol. Hard choice.
Where is the car battery hooked up to?
Well, that's what you've got to play for. So for each car part pulled out, they will earn another set of instruments, and because it's this show, the tweezers are massive and also electrified. Although, I'm not sure if the tweezers themselves were electrified.
No, I don't think they were.
I presume they had shock pads on.
Not even that. Because you could see in the car, like the little holes the items were in had a little metal ring around it. But then also, anytime somebody was actually trying to do the thing, they had the hand on one side of the car on like a little handle. So I'm assuming like that handle and then touching the metal ring was what completed the circuit.
I don't think it can be that, because when Julie hit the first metal bit, it was Dries who reacted first, and Dries wasn't touching anything other than the tweezers. So I think it must have been shock pads attached to them, because neither of them were particularly surprised that it was an electric shock.
Yeah.
But we didn't see any of this in the behind the scenes to confirm my theory on it. But I suspect they were probably wearing shock pads, because it looked like maybe it was lower back they were attached to, just from the way that Dries was reacting, in my extensive experience of electrocuting Belgian strangers.
At least they didn't have to wear like the metal suits like they always used to make the Big Brother people wear.
Yeah, very true. How did you do on these songs? Obviously the first two, we're not going to get the last one, but...
Yeah. I got Mamma Mia straight away.
Yeah.
I didn't even need the extra layers for for Mamma Mia. I think I probably would have needed another layer for Rolling in the Deep, but I would have gotten it.
I think they very carefully picked the songs for this challenge because they had to be recognizable enough from the drums. I got Rolling in the Deep from the drums because it's a recognizable drum beat. Mamma Mia is a bit harder of a drum beat, I think. I think you do need the keys for Mamma Mia. But I would say you can quite easily get Rolling in the Deep from the drums. They did another couple of these on Café de Mol, and one of them, Saunders will be delighted to know, was Mr. Brightside. And it took them, well, they didn't get it, but it took them until the vocals to actually recognize Mr. Brightside. I got it from the keys, obviously, because it's played everywhere in the UK.
Yeah, I hear it's played before every announcement in the tube.
Yeah, and also I've seen the Killers 3 times, but that's beside the point. And I think I've seen them play Mr. Brightside 6 times as a result. So when she pulls the wrench out, Isabel spots a hidden message that says whoever is the loudest on the microphone behind the car will get information about the mole. However, she does not understand how to blow a trumpet.
Just stick it in your mouth and blow.
That is your life motto.
It is. It really is.
Close your eyes and think of Flanders.
Stupid.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Oh, I hate it when you both make jokes on the same topic. And I think it is also established here that they have to use the trumpet. They can't just scream.
Yeah.
That would just be too far for België to make people scream into a trumpet. That would just be too silly.
They can't just use nothing at all, nothing at all.
I love the idea that sort of, like, everybody seems surprised by the trumpet when it turns up, but, like, after the first round, surely you wonder what the trumpet noises were.
Well, I'm assuming it was sort of far enough away that they couldn't hear it over the car engines.
Yeah, that would be loud. Those rally cars are ridiculously loud.
I will also say this is a very rare Flemish episode where I would want to do both of these challenges. The zipline looks really fun. I would love the chance to do the rally driving. I think it looks so much fun.
I was surprised how much they tried to gloss over the fact that Julie drives rally cars. It ends up being a throwaway line, I think, during the quiz or right before the quiz that we learned that.
Pretty much everything Julie's done all season has been a little bit of a throwaway thing.
Yeah, she does say it at the start of her and
Drees's round.
Her and Drees's round, yeah.
Maybe I
think
just missed it.
I think Dries mentions it at the start of her and Drees's round, but it does come back at the test. You're right.
Yeah, because I know he talked about during the quiz saying, "Yeah, Julie drove rally cars, but we were out pretty quickly."
Yeah, I think there's a more subtle sabotage here, I must say, and it is one that sort of gets called out, but I think there's a more subtle sabotage that happens.
I'm surprised during the trumpet part of the task that they weren't forced to hula hoop while blowing into the trumpet. I think that would have been perfect.
Can you imagine Isabel trying to hula hoop whilst also trying to blow the trumpet, which she's unable to do?
She would just fall down the side of the hill.
Yeah.
She'd be rolling in the deep.
So Pedro rams them just as Isabel gets the next tool out, and unfortunately that round earns nothing. The third pair is Yannis and Isabel, with Maxim and Abigail playing Operation. Abigail pushes through the pain by saying pain is pleasure, and they get 2 instruments and the keyboard and guitar all at once, and Yannis identifies the correct artist, but not the correct song.
It's just nice of them to pander to us in this challenge. Because we get Spiderbait, which is an Australian band, in one of the little intro clips. We get Adele, which is British, and then we get Pain is Pleasure, which is Logan's Last Philosophy.
So he does get the correct song just in time and earns the €1,000 for the pot. And I have to say, unfortunately, even though he's on my team, I think this episode kind of rules Yannis out of being the mole.
Yeah.
He's a bit too successful in this challenge and in the first challenge, to be honest. Unfortunately. So for the final round, Yana and Wout have the opportunity to add €3,000 to the pot by surviving 10 laps. They get a message from the mole instead of a song, though, and an offer. And they can now choose their stakes, either play for the €3,000 or race to take the information away from the currently winning pair. They decide to play for the money. Is that a good idea if you're the mole?
It does deflect suspicion here off of Wout and Yan, I think, to the group, but also makes them more suspicious at the same time. Because it seems like too obvious of a tactic to deflect suspicion.
If Wout is the mole, and spoilers for the end of the episode, I'm still thinking Wout is the mole. If he's the mole, his MO seems to be trying to appear to be the hero of the group, but then not actually being that successful. Because he's had a lot of hero moments in the first 3 episodes. And he's not necessarily succeeded in a lot of them.
Yeah.
He always seems to be in that key position of winning or losing for the group. And he doesn't always win for the group.
Yeah.
Like here.
And even, things like the sheep challenge, he was nowhere near the sheep.
No.
Like, I get they needed somebody to take the photo, but even, when Abigail or whoever it was taking the other photos, he was, way away from the sheep, and it was Maxim and Julie sort of actually, like, herding the sheep. Wout was sort of, 5 feet off to the side, arms out, and that was it. Like, you see the silhouette of his arm in one of the photos, but, like, that's as close as he comes to getting anywhere near the frame. Like, he did not do a lot in that challenge.
Yeah, because I think if you are on the sheep side as the mole, and I'm trying not to sort of go down the rabbit hole of going, the mole needed to be on this side of the challenge.
Yeah.
But I think it's more beneficial for the mole to be on that side of the challenge because you can control every round.
Yeah.
But I think actually in that side of the challenge, the best place would be on the button because you can just send them a lot of crap, irrelevant information.
Yeah.
It may very well have been that they didn't get 2-3 photos each. They got like 12. Maybe he kept pressing the button and giving them irrelevant information when there was wrong sheep in there or something that we're going to see at the finale or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a fun sabotage.
From memory, it was him who pressed that, who took that photo of it when it was like the wrong color sheep was in the photo. I think that was
Abigail did a couple of them. I think it was him and Abigail were the only 2 who pressed the button, and I think he did a vast majority of them from memory.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. I'm trying not to tunnel too hard, but yeah, Wout's my number 1 this week. Spoilers for the end of the episode. Again. Also, of interest, I think it might have been a different car that they drove. Because there's a glimpse of Abigail and Maxim in the behind the scenes. There was also they played a fragment of this in Cafe de Mol. And I don't think it had that kind of thing at the top of the car that you can see on Wout and Yannis' run with a message on it. And apparently the car was overheating, so maybe they did swap the car out.
Maybe.
But also, perhaps that's a clue. Perhaps there was something written on that car for the final round. When my mole is in the car. Just putting it out there in case it is a clue at the end of the season. So in this round, Pedro can hit them as much as he wants. He just has to stop them finishing and box them in. He slams into them on lap 5 for the first time and then properly takes them out with less than 3 laps to go, meaning they only earn €2,000 of 6,000 for this challenge, 3,500 of 10.5 for the episode, and €5,800 of 36,000 for the season so far.
I knew it wasn't going to succeed when we started getting updates about their progress way too early in that round.
Yeah.
As soon as we're getting breakdowns of what was happening in laps 4 and 5, I'm thinking, yeah, this scene isn't going to go on for another 10 minutes of this episode. I think it's going to be over very soon.
And Jill also confirms that Dries and Julie scored 104.9 decibels, Yannis and Isabel scored 114.5, Maxim and Abigail 113.3, meaning Yannis and Isabel have the extra information that they will only be able to open it if they survive this test. Also of interest, Yannis does ask Wout how he managed to break the car at the end. And he said, oh yeah, I was driving in second gear, not first gear. I think that's very interesting, because as someone who drives a manual car, I don't know whether he just stalled it as the mole. Because that's the tactic you probably would do in Wout's position. Is, oh, I'm taking it in second gear, and oh no, it stalled into the wall. looks like it's broke. Because in first, it's basically impossible to stall the car like that in first gear because you just find the bite and then go off again if you can reverse.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they could reverse in it because it was in rally mode. But in second gear, it's very easy to stall it from a standing start.
And stalling during a race is a relatively interesting sabotage.
Yeah. If Wout is the mole, he absolutely stalled that car, is what I'm saying. And I'm probably going to keep putting Wout as number one until he gets executed, only because can you imagine if in 4.5 weeks' time I go to Kinepolis with Wout as my number one every week, Wout is revealed as the mole, and Jill goes, okay, who am I cackling at this year? And I just go, not me, got him every week. I'm going full beans to try and annoy Jill this year and defy Jill's cackling.
Defy the cackles.
Yeah. So it's time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least goes home, except for the mole, who can never go home. Isabel says she's slowly getting an idea of who it is, but her suspicion of who it is changes every day. Yannis says it's time to narrow it down. At some point, you've got to commit. Yeah, at some point. Not episode 3, though. Spoilers for our suspicions. This is the last week of us having 3 suspects each. Abigail says Maxim was very confident of his abilities, but he couldn't take a corner. Could he have driven into the side of the wall? Dries says Julie says she goes rally driving often, so how did they last so little time? He appreciated that they went for the money, but they didn't bring it in the end. Maxim says Dries has a broad musical knowledge, but didn't recognise Adele. Julie says when she realised Yannis and Isabel won the information, it made sense as to why they didn't get any clues so quickly. Yannis thinks Isabel gave up on the song. Isabel says the mole would want to go last. Wout has had the image since day one that it couldn't be him, but he's super nice and it could actually be him. And Wout says it's disappointing they went for the advantage, but Yannis has no regrets. Gilles tells them they just had their last challenge in the north of Portugal as they're moving to the very sunny climes of the Alentejo tomorrow. The mole is guaranteed a seat, but who else will be joining them? Dries and Yana get green screens before Abigail's screen is red, and Logan loses a 4th team member in 2 weeks. Abigail says that maybe she just didn't know who it was, but she's delighted at what she could experience, and the rally driving was her favourite. Dries said she had a tough run with her entrance, and Wout calls her super sociable. She was the sunshine of the group.
She was?
Apparently. Not that we really saw her.
We'll take his word for it.
Next time, the group head to Tirrena. Big Brother is always watching. The game begins. The test has an error. They adapt to the Vidum laser game, but with blind people, and the information about the mole is revealed.
We just went through Amazing Race 38. We don't need another Big Brother crossover.
Who's ready for a takeover?
I've got a feeling that that's going to be like some sort of like riddle where they've got to work out that that's 1984 and then use the number for something. I don't know why.
So in the pool, once again, Logan is on the brink of making more history as Abigail's departure means he's down to just one person after 3 weeks and could become the earliest België wipeouts in the history of our pool if his last remaining team member in Yana goes home. Bindles still has Isabel, Julie, and Maxim, and I have Wout, Yannis, and Dries. And on a Vidum note, I must also point out that Logan is on the brink of a wipeout there too.
What's it like in the shallow end of the pool, Logan?
I feel like Dries' nose right now.
It's on a slight defense. This happened to you last year, but it's not to the same extent. But like,
it's on a slight defense, and then you pause for 5 seconds.
Yeah. I was thinking how to word it properly, but yeah, you did go out before the finale last year, but also I wouldn't preach too much yet. On first suspicions, Abigail's departure obviously reduces a lot of the scores, and Logan's team now drops from a 7.7 average to 6.07 non-adjusted. 11 people: Elijah, Joseph, Tim, Femke, Sandra, Natalie, Fuzzy, the Flemish publican, all 3 of us, had Abigail in our bottom 2s. And as I mentioned last week, no one had her as their first suspicion, which means we're now guaranteed to have a no-doubt winner, even if we need to use the tiebreak to stop Fuzzy winning. And the highest up anyone had her was 6th. As I mentioned last week, it's a perfect start for 2 people, Femke and myself, as we both have the exact minimum of 28 points left on our suspicions. The only way we'll still be tied next week is if Julie goes, as she's our only matching suspicion left. On the other end of the scale is still just one person, poor unfortunate Horseboy himself, as Logan has a score of 47. But the good news for you this week, Saunders, is you are now only 1 point ahead of your nearest challenger. So with a good result next week, you might not be our no doubt loser. You can give us your suspicions by playing the suspect list at the link in our bio for both Vidum and België. And the questions are, what did the mole do in the first challenge, farmer or zipline for België? And the Vidum question is, who the mole met after their 3 questions. It's very deliberately worded. It's who was presented to the mole after they answered their 3 questions. I will not accept any arguments for this in a few weeks' time when we do the results.
Fuzzy.
Yeah, I'm just laying the ground rules because me and Bindles ended up having to have a chat about what I was wording that question as, because it was maybe a little bit obscure when I did the first draft of it, and you did tell me now you need to tighten it up a bit.
Yeah, I think the words I used was, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, pretty much. The Flanders suspicions last week were Maxim and Yannis on 20%, up 6 and down 7 respectively. Dries and Wout on 13, up 8 and 5 respectively. Isabel was on 11%, up 4. Yana on 9%, down 1. Julie on 7%, plus 1. And Abigail on 7, plus 6. The Café de Mol suspicions after episode 3 were Isabel on 19%, Wout and Yannis on 16, Maxim on 15, Dries and Yana on 12, and Julie on 10. Final 2 questions. Who do we suspect? Who's going home next week?
So my suspect list: Julie, then Yannis, then Maxim, then Yana, then Isabel, then Dries, then Wout. And Wout will go next week. Wout will go next week.
He better bloody not.
Wout is out. Wout is out.
I've almost never felt happier with my suspect list because I've got Wout in first place, then Isabel, then Maxim, Yana, Dries, and then Julie and Yannis at the bottom. I think I really want it to be Yana just to fuck with Logan Saunders some more, but I think it might be Julie.
Interesting. I did suspect that Julie was going home last week, but I also said outside chance of Abigail, which means I'm on a perfect run. Still, somehow. My suspicions order was Wout, Maxim, Isabel, Dries, Julie, Yannis, Yana. I think after this week, we kind of understand why the mole would be threatened by Yannis and Yana. There was that question mark over Yannis in the first week, especially because Yana obviously did the Brevet Commando stuff and was hard as nails. But we didn't really understand why Yannis was a threat to the mole. And I think in both challenges this week, we saw probably why he is a threat to the mole, in that he's very competitive and very much wants to win. So I think that might be what the mole was threatened by. And if that is the case, then it maybe rules both of them out of contention. Not that I ever want to rule anyone out of contention on this show, because it always comes back to bite me. Wow. As much as Gilles told us not to overthink last year, or told me not to overthink last year, because he doesn't lecture you as much as he lectures me, Saunders, because you occasionally get it right. Wout has been in a lot of the right places to control whether the team win or lose money. And he's set himself up, as Isabel said in her test speech, to be the nice guy, the hero of the group. And I wonder whether that's the narrative that he wants to have as the mole, of being the nice guy who then actually was the puppeteer screwing them up at the end. I think that's a potentially nice narrative for them to tell, because they've sort of touched upon it a little bit, but never really had the mole be the hero who actually was screwing him over in the background. Maxim and Isabel, I think they're the most suspicious non-Wout people. Then there's a big old gap to Dries, who I think they're just kind of setting up as the comic relief for however long he lasts in this season. Hopefully a long time, because I enjoy him. Julie just hasn't been in these episodes. Like, her big moment was being stuck in the castle with Maita, I would say.
Yeah. And I think if Julie was the mole, I think they would probably be trying a little bit harder to show us her personality, like even aside from the sabotage. But also, like, I feel like Sarah was kind of under-edited a little bit last season as well, and I don't think they would do that twice in a row, especially with sort of the muted reaction Sarah got a little bit.
I wouldn't be surprised if Julie makes a deep run, but I can't at this point see her making the finale. And believe me, I would love nothing more than it being Julie who goes next week, because then I would have been right last week as well. But I think it's more likely Yannis or Yana. Preferably Yana, obviously, for the lols. But I wouldn't exactly be surprised if it's Yannis next week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Because obviously, if either mine or Bindles' team survive 2 more weeks, then we get a guaranteed finalist. We're on the cusp of that. And Saunders might get a guaranteed 3rd place next week.
Huzzah.
Anything else?
Fidden was really fun this week.
Yeah, it was. One more thing to mention on the Cafe de Mol point, by the way. They have a rotating cast of 6 people, 2 of whom are on each episode to sort of discuss their theories on it. And I'm assuming they're vaguely famous in Belgium. No idea who any of them are, obviously. But one of them is almost as bad as Logan at predicting, because her top suspects for the first 3 weeks were Maita in week 1, or Maita going into week 1, Carla going into week 2, and Abigail going into week 3.
Who was she picked for week 4?
Unfortunately, wow.
Damn.
Yeah. So hopefully her curse breaks next week. We also haven't really eulogized Abigail.
She was the sunshine of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
She was the sunshine. You're correct.
Do any of us have anything to say about her?
Nope. She was the sunshine. That's really all I got.
She wasn't really in the episodes that much. I mean, obviously she had her big anti-hero moment last week.
She cost the group a lot of money for someone who went out really early.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a specific Abigail moment other than just being brought back from that opening day fake out elimination.
I don't think there was one.
Let's see. Apparently, I'm trying to go through all my Abigail notes, and I don't have anything. No major highlight. She didn't do that one challenge last week.
Yeah. I mean, she seemed nice.
Yeah.
She seemed fun.
Yeah, she seemed nice, seemed fun. I just don't know how much I have to say about her.
She's sort of a very typical early Flemish boot.
Yeah.
In that she's there, she doesn't really get much of an edit. She seems nice.
Yeah.
She's not kind of Jan level of complete ire, but she was nice enough.
Yeah. I'm sure she'd be fun to talk to at the finale.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is kind of our overriding motivation for a lot of these people. I think if Julie goes next week, then she's probably the last person who I don't have a lot to say about.
Yeah.
Everyone else has kind of had their big moments that we could talk about.
Yeah, I guess with Abigail, too, the reason why there's nothing really to say about her is she wasn't really in the first episode. A lot of, even that first challenge she was in, the focus was mainly on Maita. And then we have the second episode where she didn't participate in that 5 versus 5 team challenge where, I mean, all we see is her getting yelled at by Isabel briefly, but not really her being directly participate in that conflict. She didn't really, talk back to Isabel at all. It was Maxim who jumped in.
Yeah. And even this week, all of her content is with Maxim. And I think Maxim is a little bit more dynamic as a character, so she sort of falls into the background a little bit.
She also wasn't in the speedboat challenge very long, was she? She fell off pretty quickly,
Yeah.
I think.
No, she was in the first round, I think.
Yeah, so she didn't really have an opportunity to really do much other than the when she beat out Vincent to be brought back. That was really her only major moment in 3 episodes, which is too bad for her.
Yeah.
It seemed like she could have been interesting to get to know.
Dennis did get her to play the trumpet as he did his goodbye speech on Cafe de Mol this week, by the way.
Huh.
Which seems to be a thing that whatever the prop for the week is, he seems to be getting whoever gets eliminated to use it.
How many decibels did she blow?
They did do the decibel meter for the 2 guests who were on it. I don't think either of them beat Yannis and Isabel here. Or Yannis, I should say. Because I don't think Isabel really made a sound. So, thank you for listening to our de Mol België Season 14 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for the newest malt in Portugal. Don't forget you can contact us on pretty much every social media platform that isn't TikTok, where we are TV Warriors, like emails and contact@rtvwarriors.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/RTVWarriors. And you can give us your suspicions by playing Suspect List for both Vidum and Demol at the link in our bio. Thank you as always to the Legion of Subtitlers. We will see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
Is there a doctor in the house?